Hello, cosplay world. We're getting into the fun part, which is the working bits and pieces and things like that. But of course, we have the torso. Torso is a little bit more difficult, and I kind of got the measurements and the photos for it last. So that's kind of the reason why I did it last. I'm working from the parts I have to make it fit. Typically, I think I said that I would work from the torso to make the other parts fit, but since we have the other parts, we're working backwards here. Okay. The torso is a bit more complicated of a piece. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on it than a few videos. The other videos I spent, I don't know, 2 or 3, and even then I covered like the calf in one section and the ankle or the thigh in another, and it's pretty straightforward. I took the pictures from the person who wants this made, and I did my best to get the profile of the torso. I ended up having to put some extra padding on the back side because I guess I didn't quite account for it when I was doing the hip work. I was thinking that I could carve into it and make a curve, but the dimensions weren't there when I started doing the chest measurement, so I just added more foam onto it later. There's like a small gap around the edging, you'll see, but it's okay, I can always fill it. Through a bit of experimentation at the end, I found that DAP Crystal Clear was really good at filling these kind of gaps without sort of eating it alive, which is one of the biggest things you need to worry about when constructing with EPS foam. Aside from the mask, of course, you gotta wear a mask. I have to say that a zillion times because it's important to say. So with things generally shaped, I think you guys get the idea. I was kind of I was trying my best to explain human anatomy to you in the last video, but I'm not sure how to quite convey that in a way that's usable for the average person beyond like just the obvious video of me doing it, showing you demonstrating the shapes that you need to make. Well, not necessarily, even because other people have different body types and you might have a completely different shape at the end of the day. But the idea here is to work from the 3, because this is more complex. I can actually get into the shaping of this. The other ones are just kind of make the tube at the one end one size, make the tube at the other, and then transition into the shapes in the middle, because that's how the legs kind of are. And then you have to make no, I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into it. Okay, guys, check it out. In the first section, I cut out the general shape. In the second section, I'm going to refine it into something that looks like a human, okay? And I'm going to do this by taking the 3 basic measurements that you take for any dress or any costume, kind of. Yeah, any torso-related clothing. So you got the chest measurements, the hip measurements, and the waist head measurements, alright? Now, you need to know, of course, the spacing between them, otherwise you'll end up with a really wonky shape. Like I said, a zillion measurements. So even if you have those circumferences, you need to know the relation to them. Otherwise, you end up with a really high hip bone, or you end up with really droopy boobs. So those are the kind of measurements that took me quite a while to kind of get where they were. And the pictures too are kind of important, because being a complex shape, just because you measure it from one section doesn't mean that's where the curves are, and that doesn't mean that's where the spacing are. With this, I left the hips and carved those last because they're the most extended part. Where in the chest is a bit smaller, of course. The hips, the waist is the smallest. From the reference lines, that is going upwards and downwards, I was able to position the different body parts. I was able also to carve in I've got the backside on now. I added that on. That's the part I added on. I was able to position those from the photographs because sometimes even if you're taking measurements, they're not exactly parallel measurements. Sometimes they're not exactly positioned right. And having those photos and frame of references was extremely important especially when you have to take into account sitting and standing positions, because your body shifts around quite a lot, and I want to make sure that nothing shifts so far to whack that when I'm making the costume that's for this, that it's not too tight in areas, and does it get bunch up, and it doesn't bunch up as well. So you gotta find that medium ground wherein the muscles are in a tightened and relaxed state, and sorry about that, and is the best positioning for the costume. Now you might be saying, hey, you're talking about this costume. What is this costume? Why is it so important? Well, because it's a hard suit, and it's not just like a latex or a lycra kind of like bodysuit scenario. It's kind of a really sort of form-fitting armor. So the positioning, the amount of give and take in the costume itself is going to be kind of limited, and I don't want this complex work to be too tight or too bunchy or too saggy, not fit very well. And there's a lot of places where it can go wrong because it doesn't have the give that a piece of clothing would have, and it doesn't have the space that a piece of armor would have. It's in the middle, and that's the difficulty we have there. So that's what I'm trying to work around. That's the reason why I'm trying to make this mannequin here. From the 3 basic measurements, I positioned the various body parts with the slants and the curves in the correct places, the positioning in the correct places, and the jointing in the correct places. This is all done by looking at the photos and picking up a piece and putting it on there and making sure it looks right. I wish I could have a more scientific method, but that's pretty much it. Hey, are these legs on right? No, it's not quite the right angle. Let me just shave a little off this end. Oh, hey, the neck needs to be a little more slanted. Okay, that's cool. I didn't put too much detail into the chest or the back side because I'm going to be on video, and it's kind of awkward for asking for those kind of specificness. Yeah. So, based on the pictures, I positioned them where they were and fit them as best I could. But those are especially the backside is really important for this costume because there's a lot of parts that are going to be there. That I don't want shifting around or say having problems with snaps and things like that. Oh, but this thing's basically made. We're sanding down. We're gonna go and sand down everything. The legs, the arms, everything. Make sure it's nice and smooth, make sure it looks good. Because we don't want little flakes of foam coming off and messing and being loose in the costume. Plus it just looks better. I think, the silicone, yeah, the DAP Crystal Clear. I was playing with the joint work, as you'll see in a moment, and it works really well for gluing the plastic into place. I don't have videos of it because it's just like a last minute thing after I did all the video editing, or did all the videos and I did all the photos. I just stuck it in there and went, oh, it sticks in there and it doesn't eat it. So it's something I might have to go into further, but for right now, just if you're looking to have something stick into the silicone, try that. It might work. Of course, you want to do testing, make sure it doesn't eat it. But now we're going into how it works, how it kind of fits together, and it's not that hard to figure out either. What we have here is a bunch of sections of PVC pipe, and we're going to put a wood dowel in there for the pin, or yeah, the pin that locks. We're going to have one half, one section, and another half on the other section. And where they meet together, that is where we're going to put the wood dowel. And the wood dowel is going to link them together, and we're going to put a screw in one side to permanently mount it, and we're going to put another screw in the other side to kind of temporarily mount it so it's not going all the way in. If that sounds confusing, sorry about that. I'll show you when we cut to the next section how they work. Pretty straightforward. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of take a pumpkin carving knife. It's a really small knife, and you don't really need very much to cut through foam, but what I have in there is a pumpkin carving knife. And I'm cutting a little hole in there, and then with that little hole I'm expanding it with the rasp. Just digging in there and twisting and kind of like drilling a hole in the foam with a rasp. I'm making sure that the hole itself is is snug and tinier or smaller than the pipe itself. And when you're doing this, you kind of have to make sure not to put too much pressure on it, because again, these are cakes, these are layers. Even though you've kind of glued them together, you can't split them apart like you would the grain of wood. So be careful of that when you're gluing them together. Here I am, I'm drilling holes with my rotary tool here. It's like a Dremel, but this one's considerably more powerful. And I'm screwing the dowels into place, making sure they're not going anywhere. The opposite side is also going to have a hole, but it's going to be a bigger hole that the screw can kind of slide in and out of. And the other screw is just going to act as a pin to hold it in place. Not complicated. If you happen to have something else that you want to joint them with, sure, you can use that. I just was using the pipes I had on hand, and it worked out pretty good. As you can see, the arm is now held together. There you go, see? If I want to take those apart, I'll just loosen that screw that's visible in the left side. You'll see in the arm, in the inside elbow, you see a little screw there. All I have to do is loosen that screw a little bit, and the arm will come apart into sections. The upper arms, the parts that attach to the shoulders, I didn't really feel the need to put a pin to hold in place. If I want to put the arms on, I can. They're not really subject to too much falling off. I can just put them in place and they'll be just fine. The legs need a lot more attention. There you go. You see how these work? You just stick them right in there and they hold up. Each part has two halves, as you'll notice. I'll take them apart. There we go. Take them apart. And that's them holding position. Now the part in my hand, the part that I'm just making sure is lined up, is going to go into the thigh, and we're going to, in a second, we're going to gouge out a hole and put that second half into the thigh, and that's how they, link up. Yep, there I'm cutting a hole with my pumpkin carving knife, and then I'm going with a rasp, and I'm cutting a hole, and bam, there we go. I think for the last section we're going to do is the stand, which pretty straightforward. I'm gonna show you that. One second. I'm playing with the video editing software right here so I can see what's coming up. Sometimes you can't. Alright. With that in place, all I have to do is kind of stick it on and put it in the hole that it belongs, and it's jointed together. Remember I talked about the silicone earlier? I put some silicone in there. It worked really good because some of the upper thigh was giving me trouble. It would slide out of the foam. The foam wasn't really gripping it very much, and it was actually taking me quite a while to glue. Like, it would sit there and glue for a couple days. But yeah, here I am measuring how long I want the pipe. I'm gonna cut it, and I'm gonna cut some what is it? What do I want to call those things? I'm going to cut some flanges? Some bits. I'm going to flare out. Some bits to flare out to mount to the wood. This is me just gouging out a hole in the bottom of the dummy so that it'll sit on top of it. But with that done, there I'm cutting down the pipe. I'm going to cut down the other side of the pipe. I'm going to heat it up. And I'm going to make some tabs for screws to go in. Once this cools down, of course, then I can just, it'll stand up. There we go. I'm screwing it in place and mounting the pipe. Whew. Now the dummy is just going to sit on top of there, and I'll put all the arms and legs on, and it's all good. And that's all there is to the dummy. It's only 2 videos. It actually took quite a while to make, mostly because of, it took a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of back and forth to make sure that everything was right. And not a lot of good a custom dummy is if it's not correctly measured and all that. But otherwise, I'm happy with it. I believe I set the dummy a little lower to the ground because there's no feet to it, but you can see it just kind of sitting there in the air. It's all jointed. I can move the arms up and down. And again, I was thinking about putting joints in there, like bending the elbows, bending the knees. If I want to, I can do that later. There you go. There's the peg system. Pretty simple. That's all of them. That's how all of them pretty much go together. And there you go. Hope you enjoyed. Outro time, cosplay world. Just want to say thanks for everyone who stuck around this far. We really appreciate it. Send us your comments, your concerns, your requests, and your thumbs up. They really do. They really are appreciated, and we really like seeing those in the morning. We also are hoping to get some more subs so that maybe one day we can get the press badges and cut down on the cost for conventions. Maybe even entice some folks to come join us, get some more content. That's about it. I just want to say thanks. See you around next time. Good times to all.